Hello, I'm Jason Breach. Welcome to another Woodworking Wisdom. So, I'm going to look at a few things today. If we asked you what is the difference between a Bedrock, a LIE, a Veritas, would you know? So on those hand planes there's those distinctive names, and it's a bit of a shame because actually Bedrock and LIE most of you might know. If you can tell me the differences, could be quite interesting. The Veritas, relatively new on the scene. So what are those differences in amongst those planes? How they're constructed, how they go together, does it make a difference? And hopefully we're going to show you what that does. So first thing really going to look at, LIE style plane in a minute. Where did it come from? It's about 150 years old. That's quite an amazing feat in itself, that it's been around for that long a time, it's still there. And if you talk to most woodworkers, they have a metal body style plane these days. Traditionally before this, they were wooden bodied. So with them being metal bodied, actually a bit more durable, they last longer. Leonard Bailey, who was the original founder of that, he actually started making the hand planes. He sold the patent and actually sold it to the Stanley Rule and Level Co. So most of us recognise this as a Stanley style plane. He actually developed that. He also put a lot of work into the Bedrock style. So he did those two styles of planes. What I'm actually going to try and do is show you what the differences are in those planes, how it makes a difference as well. So our Bailey style plane, and I've labelled it as a Bailey. Now this is one of the rider planes, so that's a Bailey style. So we have bronze cap iron, that'll come off. Our blade and chip breaker, one unit comes out, we're going to show you that. Then in here we have our frog. Now I'm going to go down to, I'm going to go right down to here. I want to try and enlarge all this. So inside here, we've taken the blade and the chip breaker off. We have this component on this plane, and the Bailey style. If I can get my screwdriver in there. The frog, which is this component we're going to take out. It's held in place by two screws. So lift that out. So we have our plain body, our sole, high ductile iron, two wooden handles. You have your mouth in the bottom. So basic bit of your plane. Adjuster. That's a funny thing. Lots of people don't understand there's an adjuster. Our frog has lateral movement, left or right, so we can move it over. Blade moves up and down. Your two screws. So our frog, when we put it in, the groove on the bottom here has to locate this little silver wheel. So that can be adjusted, so we can move the mouth forward and back. Now, when this all comes together, we're relying on how this is manufactured to make sure that the little components inside all seat nicely. So these four blocks are nice and level. Likewise, the casting of the frog sits on those and sits supported. If it doesn't sit supported, the blade's going to chatter when we cut. So just putting things back together, trying out. There are ways of adjusting your frog, making sure things are level. Another video. So let's just tighten that screw up in there. Get them to go. Might have this one just a bit too tight for a minute. That's better. Turn it down. I'm going to just square it up so visually I can look at the side, see how things feel. Then just finger tighten this. Get a screw on there. That's better. One there. One there. So our Bailey style plane, that's the basics of. You can understand that. We can compare that. Bedrock. We just swap these round, so we're going to take that off. I'll take the components out of there, lay them down. How does this differ? I'm going to bring this down. So, Bedrock style. Leonard Bailey had a lot to do with this. The advantage with this, in reality, is how it can be adjusted in situ. With the blade, not so much in place, but it can be done. So underneath here, I'll try to lift it up so you can see it. There's a screw there. Get my screwdriver into there, hoping not blocking you out too much. to there, get that screwdriver, there's another screw there. If I undo those, that actually allows me to adjust the frog from the middle screw like we had before. See if I can tweak it round a bit, not quite easy to see in there, you can just see the chip there, so I can move it. So in reality, with the blade in place, I can actually move the frog forward and back. But how does this frog secure? So let's get right into those screws now, take them out. I'm finger loose, so I'm going to put my hand in there. This side, do exactly the same, unscrew it. Hopefully done enough, I can lift that out. So first thing then, the casting, we've got exactly the same sort of thing. We've got our cast iron body. Difference on shape on this. A Bedrock style tends to have this flat side. Doesn't have the round curved side that we had on the Bailey. So very different shapes. So the curved one is Bailey style. Flat top tends to be Bedrock. The only number that might vary on is a smaller plane. This is the number 4, but most of them, they abide by that rule. Inside here, massive big ground cast area. So this is like a wedge all the way down to the bottom. And as much as that doesn't look dead flat, it's got like that hologram effect, that's dead smooth. Absolutely amazing. They've milled that, get it dead flat. 2 holes, your screws. So let's take this screw out. Try and give you an understanding of how this goes together. Now, to do this as a style of plane, a little bit more accurate, because the tip of the screw comes right down. I can stop it rolling around my hand. This end comes right down to a point. Inside the frog, there's this component. So the chip embeds into that point. So that's what locks everything together. Very clever, but it has to be really accurate. And then our frog, in this case, big bronze component. We have a little hook that locates onto the adjuster wheel, forward and back for your blade, lateral movement, really cleverly done. But a lot more support on this because of that big machined area. So that can go back in place. Got to look now, so I'm just going to grab the glasses because I know on the top of these pins there's a little dot that tells me which way round they have to go. So if you did take it apart, there is a little dot that does give you an idea of where the hollow is. And lock it in. Now to do what we've done with this has to be machined so it is spot on location, thickness and height wise to make this work. Not as easy as it sounds. Almost as bad as trying to get the screw back in now. Take that out of the way. Probably could have done this without the frog in. So nearly there. Bring them up. Nope. Okay. Chubby fingers. Lift that out. That's going to be easier to do it from there. Quite a lot of movement to screw in. So let's bring it down. Gives you the idea if you're going to take this apart, you don't need to take those right out. Drop that back onto our adjuster. Look at my dots on the front there. That one exactly the same. Put them in, tighten these up. One side, screwdriver into the other. LIE-NIELSEN deliberately make this as a screwdriver as well, so what I'm using with the screwdriver is actually a lot longer to give you access to get into there. Quite an important part. Now we said about adjusting the frog, we're going to show you a little bit on here. If I just slacken the screws off, either side, half a turn if that, I come in with the screwdriver on the back, see if I can turn you around, get into there, right underneath there, I can move that forward, I can unturn it, so we can adjust where the frog sits. Alright, so I can actually move it forward and back in location. Why do we want to do that? Okay, we're going to get to it, and I know that's going to be one of those questions some of you are going to have. You've said about this frog movement, why do we want to move it? How about we do the Veritas, and then we're going to answer it. So the Veritas, what varies on this? You have your chip breaker, your blade, same sort of configuration. Right, let's take this down to here now. Veritas did something a little bit unusual with this. Those two designs we've looked at have been around for 150 years. The Bailey, the Bedrock, possibly a little bit less, 120 years. But they've been there a long time. Veritas did something different. They kind of went, right, let's design a bevel down style plane, a normal bench plane. What can we change and make it a bit different? How can we develop something? And the features in this I didn't know about until really we went and had a look. So back on here, first thing on the top, we have a Norris style adjuster, lateral movement, left and right. You also have your blade movement, your winder up and down. So we can put the blade down, heavier cut, wind it back, lighter cut, left or right. Very clever, all in one thing. We have screw that I'm just going to take out of the way. It makes my life a lot easier. That holds chip breaker in place. The screw underneath here, don't have to take it right out, but we're going to take it out because we want to show you how this frog goes in. So this still has a frog. So screw in the centre comes out. Around here there's a brass screw on the back. Can undo it. Take that one out. This now means that our frog, if I'm careful, lifts out. One component. Not only is it one component, also metal bodied, links to your handle. So first of all, that's a lot stronger as a handle. It also means everything force-wise as I'm pushing is pushing down that taper section. So all my force when I'm trying to do my cut, it's actually pushing through the bottom of the plane, pushing into the blade if you like. Unlike a normal handle that might flex a little bit and you're pushing straight. So very cleverly designed as one unit. Next thing that's really clever, looks like it's got a massive throat. Actually, when this goes back in, I can clip it back in place properly. Not quite there. Got to come in under. Let's put them down, it's easier than juggling it about. This infill bit, that's the bottom of the frog. So the frog extends all the way to the base of the sole. It's the only plane I know where that comes all the way down through. That means you're supporting directly behind where the cut is. Very clever. Put them back down. We're just going to put brass knob back on the back. Let's turn it round so you can probably see what I'm doing a little bit. Silver one, got to go down in there. Hoping I can get them pulled up. Cap iron screw, just going to put back in place. So I can undo the silver one half a turn, that got to go in a bit more. Back knob I can undo. You've got a winder adjuster on here, so I can move. Try and show you. Might not work so well upside down. Okay. I can open and close that mouth, so I wind it backwards, wind it forward. So I'm hoping you can see the gap on the back of the mouth here getting bigger. So I'm closing that mouth down, or we can open it up. So 3 designs that we've just looked at, but they're actually totally different. Just doing the screw up on there. Trying the back one. So we've got those 3 designs. They vary quite a bit in design. Does it make a difference? Why do we want the frog to move forward? What does that do? If you've got more support on the bottom of the blade, is that beneficial? All right then, so let's see if we can get this to work. This is a cross section, if you like, of looking down through your plane. So we have mouth, we have the movable bit, the frog. Bottom of your plane, your sole, mouth bit. So, quite simple to understand. To cheat, I'm going to just clamp the frog in place, just to secure it. Get it level on the bottom. So that emphasises in reality how your plane is set up. You then want your blade. That goes in. On here we have a 25-degree bevel and a 30-degree sharpened edge. That will move up and down. We can set it up to take a cut. Now, depending on where the mouth is, if I start to cut, I'll get my bit of cardboard to sit where I want. What happens here, we've got a big section between the front of the blade, the cutting edge, and the support edge of the mouth, back here. So in reality, as we start to cut, if we're not supporting it and pushing the shaving in place, we get tear out in this area. So in other words, the shaving is allowed to lift and tear off. So actually that rips your fibres before you get going properly. It will tear them. So actually, if we can move the frog forward and close the mouth up, let's come to there. Clamp the frog back in place. Set our blade up, so we clamp that in. What we've now done is close this gap right up. Made it a lot smaller. So therefore, not as open. It allows the blade to cut more effectively. So you can see there we get less of a gap, less tearing. So just that simple thing of being able to adjust your mouth or your frog, and on this case we adjust the frog on the Bailey style, Bedrock and the Veritas plane, bevel down style plane. We'll explain that for you in a sec so you're familiar with it. Really important to do. But we can adjust that mouth. Why do we want to adjust it? Well, we've already said we can obviously help support the shaving. If you want to take a thick shaving now, a heavier cut, and you bring the blade down more, you haven't got the clearance area in front of it. So therefore the shaving won't pass through that gap. So therefore you might actually find you need to bring this back. The other scenario that will play a part with this, if you change your blade and you go with something thicker, so some of you have a traditional Stanley style plane and you change the blade for something thicker, you might find you need to adjust the frog back. Right, so let's put our block out of the way. Let's go back down to our planes then. Other things that might vary. Got our blade. So let's go just to here for thickness of blade is quite an important part. Traditional Stanley blades are about 1.9 mil. This is 3.16. So that's a rider blade, one of the new ones. LIE-NIELSEN one, 3.7. So what I'm trying to get over is thicker blades are also going to help, but also you need to adjust that frog back to accommodate this. So 3.19. So you can have a thicker blade as long as you move things back. Last little thing, I suppose, back onto the overhead if I can hold them accurately. You get different ship breakers. More modern ones were developed by LIE-NIELSEN. So no gap in between this really, very tiny gap. On the back of here, if I can get my screwdriver to get you in there. Turn them round. Little ridge on here. You can't really see it. There's hardly anything there. Small little step. That produces pressure. So it's working on a spring pressure technique. The Rider ones have that. The Veritas ones have gone with the traditional spring steel. So more bent. There's a curve. So it doesn't matter too much what you go with on there. Major thing I think we can look at on there. So let's bring our blade back out of the way. Things that can make a difference then. And we're going to go to the Veritas one just for a few other little things that I know about. First of all, that mouth by coming all the way forward is supporting the blade where we're cutting, all the way up. That's quite a unique feature. On Norris style adjuster, I've just got a picture there, look. There's this bit. Very clever, that will sit in. We know we've got our screw we can adjust there. Other things on here, little side set screws. just in the edge here. There's one there. I think you can see that. One the other side. So the idea of that is we can wind them in or out. So we've got a small screwdriver there. We can wind it in or out. It will pinch on the side of the blade, stop the blade skidding left or right when we put it in. Which blades? That's back to there. Just going to set them back up. So I'm going to set it up on something off the bench. So I've got pencil. I'll go back in. Check where we are. Just catching that screw wound in, I think. Check we sit level. That's better. Check we have our lateral movement work left or right. So I can move my lever. That's good. Cap iron goes on. We need to set it up so we've got just enough. So first thing, wind this back. This screw needs to come out a little bit. A little bit. So what I'm trying to do is get this on with minimal amount of adjustment. So that should lift on and off. Then I can tighten this down. That's good. Do it up. Our blade, want to check where we are. Going to come back a bit. Tighten it up. So at the moment the mouth, we've got something as a whole. Nothing too big. I expect we can see it better with the white. If I can get where we need, in under there. So you can see our gap. So we could adjust that forward a little bit more. Bedrock, I think we've set up. We did those up. Just need to tighten those very lightly. So again, we can adjust the mouth on this, and we can do that with the blade in situ. So we can undo the 2 screws on the back, do the winder, move it forward. So the 2 screws down in here, they've got a screw head on, and then the adjuster is in underneath at the bottom there. Just see if I can tilt you better. That's better. So the adjuster's down there, side screws either side are your lock screws. So again, that can be adjusted with the blade in. The traditional Bailey style, you have to obviously undo the 2 interior screws. Just down in there. You can undo those. You can move things forward or back. By moving it forward and back, you're going to add more pressure to that shaving. Stop it lifting and tearing before you do your cut. So we're just putting everything back together. That's not quite on our edges. That's good. So we've done exactly the same thing with these. Check where we are. We haven't had to adjust the cap iron screw on there. So hopefully you've got a bit of a better idea of how that setup changes, how it can vary, depending on what you buy. There are lots of Bailey style planes out there. Been there for a long time. The Bedrocks, a little bit more sought after. They will hold a higher price. The Veritas has some really unique features, so hopefully you've got a better idea of how they work. Hoping you can understand what you can do with your frog and why you might need to move it forward and back. Add more pressure to the shaving. Maybe if you change your blade for something thicker, a 3mm thick blade, and yours is originally 1.9mm, you might need to move that back to give it clearance to get that new blade in. Hopefully you found it useful. You know where we are. You can email us, Woodworking Wisdom. We will see you next time. Thank you very much.